little machine gun, the Commodores. Here on the John Riggins Show with Dexter Manley, Tuesday, November 17th. We got to dissect and the burgundy and gold got machine gunned again by the Detroit Lions.
They're walking around on stumps because they shot their feet off.
They did.
That's what happens. Welcome, everybody. Todd, how you doing?
Doing outstanding.
Dex.
Better than good, better than most.
Good to hear that. Listen, I parked the car out in the parking lot, and I started to walk in here, and as I drove past this one car, it was a sports car. It was about 18 inches off the ground. That was the roof. I mean, it looked like something, that Scooby-Doo would drive. Well, actually, more like Scrappy-Doo, because it was really, this car.
Low rider.
Low rider? Yeah. But it was an Audi. And you told me about this about 3 or 4 years ago, that they started making a sports car, didn't you? You're the one who told me about it.
Yeah.
Well, so I drive past this thing, Dex, and of course, like all that's got that, the back window is almost parallel with the ground. That's how raked it is, or however you want to call it. Yeah. I look in there and I'm going, I'm thinking, well, that's a luggage area. What do you think they got in there? It's open so you can see the engine.
Whoa.
Have you ever? I've never seen a car in my life where they want you to see the mill
That's
that powers.
Kind of cool.
Well, I thought the same thing. And so I did something that I went, and wouldn't you know it, so I'm backing into my stall, and as I'm getting ready, because I want to go and check this thing out. And don't you know, the two guys come over to start getting the car, and I'm going, wow, that kind of screws me there. So
hey, what are you doing eyeballing our car, big guy?
So there was another car right beside it, so I had my little acting moment there, Bill Esper. I went over and I walked towards the other car. And in the back of the car, there looked to be like a big, thick Bible because it had all these tabs in it and all this. So that got my attention, kind of. But really, it was just it was a decoy because my real interest was to my left. So I look at that and then kind of went, oh, okay. And then I just casually strolled by. And sure enough, when I went by, I said, I swear to God, it looked like they're showing the engine in that thing. And that's what it was. You're right. It was pretty impressive. I don't know. I guess it was a V8, but hell, it could have been a V10 or a V12. I don't know what they put in.
Oh, that Audi! It's probably the A8.
At least
model
an 8.
Is the model of that particular car. Yeah, that starts at about 130.
Yeah.
Hey, John, do you like muscle cars?
Yeah, not really, Dexter. I don't know what happened to me. My best friend in high school, well, one of them, he was a car guy. And he hung out with the greasers, kind of, but he was an athlete too. He's able to straddle both worlds, the greaser and the athlete. I don't know how he did, because his parents let him do whatever he wanted to. Like when he was in the 8th grade, he had a haircut where he had his hair all slicked back on the side. And he was always hitting it with a comb, and he used Wild Root.
Put away that comb, the Brill cream.
No, Wild Root. Do you remember Wild Root?
No, do not.
Oh, that was a hair tonic. He used to slit it all, and Brill cream though was another one. Yeah, he'd get his hair all slicked back and then he had a black leather jacket and I'm going, and my parents.
Really Fonzie.
I had, exactly.
Right.
I had no shot. There was no way I could even just forget about it. Hey, Mom, do you think I could get a black leather jacket like Dan? And they go, get out of here.
Can't even use Brill cream.
So anyway, he was a car guy, and he kind of moved up. Originally, he bought Keith Horse 58 Chevy Bel Air. It had overdrive on it. It was a 348, what I remember. So I was a car guy back in the day, but I never. We couldn't buy a car. My dad never. We had to drive the family car if you wanted to go someplace, and that didn't happen very often. But then he moved from that. I think he got he got a Corvette, I believe it was. He had a Corvette in college. I do remember that.
He's a privileged guy.
Huh?
He's a privileged guy.
Well, not yes and no, because Mom's was a school teacher. Dad was kind of a jack of all trades, helped out a lot of the farmers around there. So it wasn't like that there was a lot of money that I knew about. But he always made it a priority to drive a nice car. And like I said, he got a Grand Prix, brand new Grand Prix, and so on and so forth. But really for me, it's kind of funny. I always like to look at those cars, but they're too small. It's like I told you, that MVP car, they gave me a Trans Am. Yeah. Wide load in the ass. Couldn't sit in that seat. Wasn't going very far in it. And then one time I got a dealer, gave me a Corvette for about 3 or 4, no, it wasn't 3 or 4, it was about a month or so. And it's a good thing I gave it back to him because I almost killed myself with that. You just ain't used to that, and take off. But what I've been told now with these new electric cars that you can take your Ferraris and Maseratis and Porsches and Audis and you jump in your Tesla and guess what? They're lunch meat when you line up at the traffic light. Have you guys heard that about the torque that these new, what do you call them, electric cars have? It breaks your neck stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to believe they're 0 to 60. I think they got some cars that are 0 to 60 in like 3 seconds.
I got another question. Did the guy have all the girls at the school when he had the car?
No, not really. But I suppose because he hung around with me and Possum. I mean, it's like he had his priorities straight. But we all went to Julius's, the place, the drinking place out there where Beulah would come and ask you for your draft card, and as long as you reached for it, you go, just as long as you got it with you. You didn't really have to have
check
one.
it too thoroughly.
But yeah, so I thought that was kind of interesting about with the vehicles nowadays, that as much as I don't think the internal combustion engine's going away anytime soon. But I don't know. I mean, because I'm in the market. I'm not really in the market. We talked about this a while about a new truck. And I can't decide, because I was telling you I saw this truck that was just like Old Yeller International that I had. Last year they made them, 1975. It had a 392, had a 5-speed transmission. They had basically the same exact car, different color and all that stuff, out in Idaho. I never did hear back from these folks, but I think if I'm going to get a new vehicle, it'll either be, and I used to buy vehicles brand new, and there's something good about that, because you go in and you get everything you want on it, right? Because they write it down, just like you're ordering lunch, take your order, and then it comes and you got everything on it the way you want. It's not like going to the lot and buying a car off the lot. But nowadays, I've gotten back into buying cars, used cars, just to save money. And I've been fortunate. I knew somebody that would go to an auction, auction,
up in Pennsylvania.
Auction. Yeah, Mannheim I think is where it was.
Yeah.
And they'd purchase a car, and I could get it, and you'd buy it at wholesale, basically. So you're not, you save yourself a couple $1,000. But like I said, now based on the way cars and vehicles are, and just how tricked out they are with electronic, gadgets, you might say. I don't, because all of it basically gets down to knowing how to operate a computer. And
completely.
I just go. It's lost on me. I don't have. The bad part is, I think, guys, is I have no desire to learn. Just have no desire to learn how to, because I'm sure I could
get you one of those self-driving cars. You just jump in and it takes you right over.
I wonder what that thing would do when I get out to Kansas, which we're going to talk about in a second, and get out there and get about an inch of rain on that road going to my farm. I want to see what that self-driving car does. I'd be interested.
A lot slower.
Well, it might go. It would better go slower. But my point is, will it stay on the road, or will we be calling a tow truck to pull me out of the ditch? That's something where I'm thinking, I don't know if you're good enough. I think that this is what's called machine error, because you need a human to be able to.
We're going to start seeing a lot more of them here in these next year or two, especially in the trucking industry.
Self-driving, yeah.
Self-driving trucks, they're out there now.
Well, you know what, well, obviously they have to take that into consideration, because even, you don't have to get out to Kansas on an unimproved road, a dirt road, and get, a couple inches of rain or whatever, and you got to go feed cattle and try to maneuver to get out there. And let me just say, from past experience, it's tricky, because mud depends on how much, it really depends on how much rain. If it's really soft rain, you get a lot of rain and it's a soft rain, it sinks in, and basically I don't think you're as much danger of slipping off the road as if it's a light, hard rain maybe, and just makes the very top surface of the road, because it's still hard, but it's greasy, and you can slide all over. If you get the softer rain, you start making ruts, and you drop inside there, and that kind of holds you on the road. But when you talk about these big, semis and stuff, 18-wheelers that are what you're calling self-driving trucks, what happens when you get snow and ice on the road? I mean, in other words, if you're an engineer, you had to have I mean, I don't know how they do this, but, in a way, you got to figure, I guess if they can put a man on the moon, they can probably figure out how to, truck, when it hits ice and that that trailer starts to jackknife a little bit, how that truck rights itself.
Listen, what's going to be more efficient? A computer in its brain, or humans? And that's, think about with airplanes, right? And pilots, they do very little now. They do very little. They're really kind of babysitting the machine. It's takeoff and landing, and even
well, I think, I don't know, but I've heard, I think that the pilots still land the plane and take the plane off. But I've also heard that they're getting more and more towards that being automated.
Right.
Where, it's basically you don't even need to lock the captain's door.
He's leaning back. Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking he's not even up there. There's just nobody up there. It's just like, everybody's like, they got a recording. Okay, everybody get, do whatever we're doing, we're getting ready to land, all this stuff. why have a pilot? Then who can hijack the plane?
Hey, let me ask you two guys something. They just had this lunch. You know, they want to take it private, have regular citizens to go out and go up to the moon. Would you guys be interested in that?
Oh, the launch. Yeah.
The launch.
Yeah.
How about you, Riggo?
You mean to actually jump in a rocket and take off and take a trip to the moon and land on the moon, walk around for a little bit?
Yeah, and stay for about a week or so.
You know, I like to camp and all that stuff, which I'm going to, but I don't know if this is there. I mean, is there any bears and lions up there, or any wild game we might be able to go
little
hunting
green
for?
Martians or
Yeah, I mean something.
But do you think they're doing all this kind of lunch because that's where people going to go live?
Well, they won't be living on the moon. I'm pretty sure of that. They're thinking about Mars, though. I think they're trying to find life. They found something not so long ago. Now
Was it water?
Yeah.
Well, they found water, but they found some form of bacteria or something in some kind of a layer of haze or something around Mars, I think. I think they found some form
I
of
think
real...
you should go take that trip. It's going to cost you $200,000.
Was that all? That's a bargain.
You think so?
200K?
200. You got 200K. You can go. That's what they're starting to shoot off.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to stay here.
Me too.
It's screwed up with all our problems and warts
Well, that's
and
what
all.
I'm trying to figure out. Obviously, I guess we get back to the old Star Trek series where eventually, I mean, this is going to become inhabitable. So somehow, some way, I don't know how many generations into the future this is, unless mankind figures this out. Now, I'm not a science fiction guy or even a science guy, but I guess this much I do know. That I believe the sun's got about another 500 million years in it. Maybe it's a little bit more than that. Okay. There's different 500 million, which, when you go back, that's not really that much time. But I think it may be, it's not 500 billion because I think the universe is only 1,400 or 14 billion years old.
I'll
the
have
universe
to take your
itself.
word, Riggo.
It's something like that. My point being is that, the sun will burn out, so life on Earth will be impossible. So you would think out of all the galaxies and the billions, trillions upon trillions of stars and all this in the universe that there would be something that would be hospitable for human life. But so
maybe it's not human life. It's another life form.
I get exactly, and then that's where it's like now this is going to get really serious. Is who gets on that ship? Everybody else got to stay here when the fireball hits.
I'll tell you who does. Alex Smith, okay?
There you
Alex
go.
Smith.
He might be.
I got one more question, John.
Yes, sir.
Do you think the moon going to fall one day?
I don't think so, no. What makes you think that?
Because you said something about...
Gravity?
Yeah. You said something about...
Well, now we're getting into...
But if it falls, will we all get burnt up?
Well, if the moon hits the Earth, it's going to hurt.
Like a big pizza pie? That's amore?
Yeah, that's when the moon hits the sky. Is that what it is? God, that reminds me. Now you got me off. I watched one of those Dean Martin roasts, which, interestingly enough, if you looked on there, I'd try to recount who the guest roasters were, but most of them are dead.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't know, this must have been in the late 60s. Huh?
About
she was on there.
Phyllis Diller.
She was one of them. Keep going.
Flip Wilson?
Flip Wilson. Excellent.
Okay.
You're hot. Keep going.
Don Rickles?
Don Rickles. Come on.
Oh, Foster Brooks.
Foster Brooks. Captain Foster Brooks. He was actually, Bob Hope was being roasted.
Oh, wow.
And Foster went up as Bob Hope's captain of his plane that he flies
Was Sammy
around.
Davis Jr.?
Sammy did not make it.
Sammy
no.
did
Sammy
not.
did not make it.
Interesting. Wow, that's a heck
Nipsey
of a show.
Russell.
Nipsey, now a poem. Now a poem.
Hey, Todd, when you say John looked like Opie with his hat on, like he's turning orange.
Opie on Barney.
Mayberry.
And the Mayberry.
Mayberry RFD.
I can see Opie. I can see Opie in you.
God. Dex, I don't even... okay, do you still see Opie? Did Opie just leave the room? That scared me. I just saw myself.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, I'm getting ready. And this is the best part of the whole trip is planning.
Planning for the annual sojourn, the hunt to your property in Kansas.
Yeah. I looked at it. I mean, Lisa Marie, I think I told you this last time, was trying to talk me out of it, saying, "You sure you want to go, honey?" And I'm going, and I thought about it, and I went, you know what? It's going to get harder, not easier. But in 5 years, oh yeah, I'll put it off a couple more years. Ain't no big deal. A couple more years, hell, I don't know. It might be,
You might be on the moon. You might be up with Dexter on the moon.
Could be. Yeah. So I'm figuring. I mean, now let me say this, guys. Now all of a sudden, I'm watching the news on yesterday morning, And they're talking about how the COVID has just really come to life out in the Midwest. Kansas was mentioned. So,
Really?
Really, yeah.
Wow.
So I started doing a little research on that, and I'm going to talk to my brother, Bill, who lives out there, and just find out what he says about it. 'Cause I'm going, I can be self-contained. For the most part, all I'd have to do would be to stop by the house there in Centralia where Bill lives, my brother, where we grew up, and grab some gear that I stashed there from years gone by, like my tent and some other stuff. Then I'll have all the stuff, because I'm going to drive out, I'll have all the supplies I need. I really wouldn't need to check in with anybody after that. So it's kind of a fluid situation right now.
You take less accoutrements in your.
Well, no, I take more. I would have to have more accoutrements because I'm not. Well, actually, I really don't. I'll take the same amount because I'm really not planning on going to town. Once I get there, I'll just stay where I am until me and Chongo come face to face with one another.
Now, will your wife let you take Coco out there?
Yeah, but not on the hunt. I mean, she's got to go to school. Hell, I'd take Coco if she didn't have to go to school, and Coco would probably go. She's a gamer.
Yeah.
She likes it out there. So.
All right, well, we're going to see if Dexter would be a gamer, because Dexter, I got footage from the big guy's base camp here that we're going to pull up here and get your reaction to.
Yeah, I'm just, like I said, I'm not 100% sure right now if I'm going to pull. I mean, I'm 99% sure. Yeah, this is 2 years ago. And it snowed the day before I got there, and boy, I was licking my chops. I'm going, this is the way it's going to be. I'm loving it.
Is that, you got a little fire going or something?
Yeah, got a little fire going. There's a tent. You see my tent back there in the background.
And you
that
sleep
tent's
in
about
that?
30 years old, 40 years old, huh?
You sleep in that?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And all that snow out there?
Yes, sir. Just the way you like it.
Yep, Dexter.
Hey, Dex, this is my hood right here. This is my hood. Ain't got to worry about a lot of bros coming around
Or the bears.
checking me
Or the
out.
bears.
Or bears, yeah.
Yeah. What kind of revolver do you have when you're out there?
I don't, but I'm thinking I'm taking
What?
one this time. Every time I go out there, this is kind of interesting too. Every time I go out and I spend the night, that first night is just like, I've done it so many times. I've told you the story about Glenn Jenkins and the Coyotes, right? But it never fails. Every time I get out there, by 7 or 8 o'clock, I'm in my sleeping bag, I'm in the tent, and those coyotes start, and they're
They say, hey, fresh meat in town here, fellas.
Exactly. I mean, and it sounds like there might be 20 of them out there. Literally, they're surrounding you, and they sound like they're about 30 yards away from the tent. Now, they're probably a good half a mile away, but the way sound travels out there, and every time it happens, I keep thinking of Glenn Jenkins. Yeah, Glenn, he's killed 300 or 400 in a lifetime. Don't exactly raise the hair on the back of your neck, but every time I'm out there, it raises the hair on the back of my neck, and I keep asking myself, why didn't I bring a gun with me? Why don't I have a revolver in here, or
And
a
where
pistol?
are my car keys?
Yeah, so the last time I was out there, at least I had a little hatchet, so I had my hatchet in the tent. I felt better. Then I'd be out there like, what's his name, Samson, with the what do you call it, the jawbone of an ass, slewing Philistines or Philistines or whatever. Wasn't Samson, it was Hercules. Maybe it was Samson. I can't remember. It was Samson.
Do you get serenity when you're out there?
Yes, that's exactly why I go, Dex. That's exactly why I go.
Yeah.
It kind of brings everything together for me.
Okay.
I'm not a particularly religious guy, so I go out there and do a lot of
Do
contemplation.
you take the Bible with you?
I said I'm not a very religious guy.
Oh, but when those coyotes come, you have to do.
The valley of the shadow of death is the last thing. I'm not worried about the 23rd Psalm, though I walk through the valley.
So you know a little bit.
Yeah, well, yeah, I've been around. Don't get me wrong, I haven't been around. That's basically kind of what it is. I realize there's two things about it. One, and then when the trip's over with, I come back home and I say, well, I ain't going back out there. It never fails. I'll come home after a while and go, yeah, I don't know why I do this. And then, the fall starts up, and the next thing you know, I'm going, I got to get back out there. And of course, God forbid I kill Chongo on this trip. That big, huge buck that goes about 175 in the record book, and you go, well, I guess that's it. It's like hitting a walk-off home run.
My work is
It'll be
done.
kind of the equivalent of that run in the Super Bowl. It's like,
There you go.
Where do you go with it after this?
You need your 4th and 1 in your Chongo.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, were you doing this as a football player, or this something after you
No,
left?
this is after I got out of football. Well, as a player, we could never,
Yeah.
I would have depended on when it happened. But remember, what wouldn't have been great if we'd have had a bye week?
Oh yeah.
You never experienced it. I never did.
I-
The weird thing is they told me years ago, at least in the AFL, the guys up there at the Jets told me that they used to have the All-Star break in the middle of the season like baseball.
My goodness.
And they'd play an All-Star game, and then they go back and finish out the season.
Yeah, let's beat the hell out of each other, then go play.
But there's a bunch of guys that didn't make the team that are like, oh yeah, y'all have one more martini. Oh, it's so nice.
Can you imagine that, Dex?
Yeah. Well, I like to imagine you and Joe Gibbs going to sit out there in the tent.
Yeah, Joe might, but then, then he'd be reading the scriptures at night. I'd say, Joe, turn that light out.
Pass me a beer for crying out
Hey,
loud.
Joe, drink this beer and put that Bible down. We got to calm him down a little bit. Yeah, so as I say, we'll, like every couple, 3 days, like I said, I keep checking this out. I'm saying I'd be, at this point, 90% sure I'm going to go, but just this latest thing over the weekend kind of threw a little, I better take this serious. I mean,
COVID's real.
Yeah,
It's rearing its ugly head again, and but the only good news is it looks like
vaccine.
another drug manufacturer with some really good news today. So hopefully,
95% effective?
Yeah.
And they say 50 or 60%. The flu vaccine that you get every fall, I think that's like 50 or 60% effective.
I heard on the radio coming here, WTOP, that 40% of the people say they won't take it. Will you take it?
Yes, absolutely.
You take it.
I think I would.
I
mean, if it's okayed by the FDA, if they say yeah, it's a go.
I'm gonna take it.
I mean, what's the worst you can get? COVID. I mean, you might
Hell,
end up.
you already kicked COVID's ass, Dexter.
But I in one sense, I'm kind of envious of Dexter, only because he came out the other side. But because I'm thinking you don't know if the antibodies, if it's going to last or anything, right? Or in a year or 2 years from now, if you can catch it again. I don't think right away, like in the next 6 months. But why do I say that? I don't have a clue. I'm not a doctor. I only made it through 3 years of med school. Not really.
They had a
I
science
didn't even make it through
lesson,
undergrad
a
school.
science lesson earlier today,
Yeah.
and going back in billions
Now
of
we're
years.
doing medical. Yeah.
Back to the Future.
Back to the Future. That's
Speaking of which, Back to the Future, the burgundy and gold, guys. Is it not stunning that game, that is the blueprint for what is 2020 in this football team? Fall behind by a bunch early.
Yep.
Fight your guts out to the very bitter end and lose, and everybody's going, oh, but if only we had done this, if only we had done that, to the Detroit Lions.
I think Alex Smith played a decent game. I was impressed with him. Only thing is that he couldn't run. He couldn't get out of the pocket.
Well, he did that a couple times, actually, I thought. I thought he bought, not like he used to, but I will say, Dex, I have to agree with you. I was surprised.
Yeah.
There were a couple times where they put pressure. He was at least able to get outside the pocket and throw the ball away a couple of times, and I think, once or twice he actually made a play.
Right.
Yeah, Todd, I hear what you're saying, and I don't know. I think when you look at it, it's just this is part and parcel of bad football teams or a poor football team, that there's no consistency.
No
And
rhythm. They have no rhythm.
The weirdest part is, though, that they do the handicap at the beginning of the game. I mean,
Stunning.
But then again, I don't know. What would you rather have? Would you rather have they play well in the first half and then they kick a can, and then stumble their way through the second half and end up losing? And that would really be frustrating, losing. I mean, they did. There's a lot of. I was watching that game yesterday, and I'm thinking to myself, and all the opinions that everybody has about the team and about the management and ownership and all this stuff. And I realized that it's just so diffuse. There's so many different ways of looking at things. And, and Alex Smith is a great place to start with. Last week, I'm saying, I think Dexter and Todd, we all agreed on the fact that we think that the future of the team really doesn't lie with Alex Smith. Now, all of a sudden, you got a columnist writing for one of the papers here saying, oh, wait a second. Could Alex Smith be the quarterback of this year and maybe maybe the year after? Like, okay, so I guess they're assuming that the defense is really for real, and they looked like that. They
They're
look
not
like
for
I
real.
don't get them. The first half, they're just tearing them apart, running the football. I just don't understand.
And again, this is the Detroit Lions.
Right.
They stink. They are El Stinko.
And then they stop it in the second half, and they shut the run down for the most part, and actually they start doing 3 and outs, but Stafford and his crew, they're off the field more often than not. They were only, but I think they scored. Did they score a touchdown and a field goal, the winning field goal in the second half? I can't remember the scoring.
Was the second half.
Yeah, because they did. The defense did a decent job in the second half, but you don't understand the first part of it. I'm getting kind of far afield because what I was talking about was Alex Smith, and I just don't understand. That maybe something that I'm overlooking is that the leg is really fine. That there's nothing wrong with the leg other than the fact that you know, to have that kind of trauma, you know, to any part of your body, it's not going to be the same as it was before. So clearly, I would think that his ability to run and that kind of has got to be hampered somewhat. I mean, I don't think he's quite like he used to be, but I was pleasantly surprised to see he doesn't look as helpless I thought he was going to be.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I felt that he felt more comfortable this week than the week before.
Yeah, and that you know, like anything else, I think you guys nailed it last week. That there's still, and it would be true of anybody, the apprehension that you go through. He had a whole week to know that he was now going to be the starter after almost 2 years of not being a starter in an NFL football game. So there's a little pressure there, but you also had you had the benefit of knowing, well, I played last week and did okay, and the leg held up, and I've also played in a game earlier in the year where it looked like, you know, I guess against the Rams or whatever, right. And so he had a little bit of experience, but all of a sudden you get out there, and I saw a couple times he was smiling, so all of a sudden you saw Alex Smith was having fun.
Right.
Obviously he's more relaxed, and I think that spreads around, you know, to your teammates in the huddle. But the big picture, I'm telling you right now, I just can't grasp, you know. And here's where what we were saying last week, and I think at least what I was saying, and I think you guys agreed with it, was for me that I still think that, you know, the other guy, number 7, would be the logical guy to be playing right now because you're in experimental theater here for the most part. But then you find out in the same article that said maybe Alex Smith is the quarterback of the future, you find out that number 7 hasn't changed. You read the same article I did. Isn't that what it said? It says
did.
His work habits haven't changed. I mean, to me, that's, you know, he just, I guess, I mean, I kind of get that because I've had that kind of a streak in me somewhat when somebody, you know, where somebody challenges you and you don't want to do it their way, so you basically give them the figurative bird, right? You give them the bird, and that I'm guessing is what he's doing because he's thinking, hey,
and probably the first time in his life/career where he's been told, no, you go sit in the corner over here. We don't need you anymore. We'll let you know. And that probably has to be a shock to the system for anybody.
Yeah, what I read this week was the week just started, but you got Kyler Murray, you got the guy just got drafted with Cincinnati Bengals.
Right, Burrow.
Yeah, you got all these young guys that are playing well.
Yeah, they are.
I can't understand why this guy.
Because he's
Tua, he's playing for Miami.
Yeah.
And there's a rookie that I don't know who he is, but he plays for not San Diego. He plays for the Chargers.
That's right.
He's tearing it up.
Humphrey, is that Humphrey?
Herbert.
Yeah.
And even Daniel Jones.
Yeah, Jones. He's coming alive.
Even Jones.
I'm telling you, watch out for the Giants. I got a feeling.
I told you.
I
told you they fight their guts out for this coach for whatever reasons, and they were the best losing team that I've seen by miles, and they're getting some guys back off of injury. They beat Philadelphia, so we got a little stat up here. So a couple of points off of the game yesterday. Do you realize? And we thought the streak was going to be snapped yesterday. Washington football team is the only team in the NFL that has not scored points in their opening drive.
Right.
And they were about to do it, and then they took a couple of large sacks and. Look, now, conversely, the Green Bay Packers, through 9 or 10 games, yesterday against Jacksonville was their first game in which they did not score points on their opening drive. Yeah. And so, and really the biggest thing, not to get too geeked up in stats, but there are a couple things that are very telling. The point differential of points scored versus given up, and the Redskins are a minus 76 point differential, which is off the charts bad. And the entire NFC East, every team in the NFC East has a point differential of minus 25 or more.
Good God.
Which is just,
It tells you. I mean, it was funny. I'm looking through the standings yesterday at the end of the day, just out of kicks, and you see some teams are like 7-2, and you see 6-3, and I think there was like maybe a 5-4. Well, actually 5-4, I think it was. And you get to all this, and then you get to, I think it was Philadelphia, who was, what was it,
3-5-1.
Yeah,
we've got that up there for you.
Three wins.
3-5-1. Now this is from Elias Sports. They're the best in the business. No outright division winners has fewer wins at this stage in the season in history. So right now the
Yeah.
Giants are 3-7.
Right.
And they did to the Eagles what they did to Washington. Eagles were coming off a bye week. They took it to them again, and this is pretty remarkable what's going on at the with the
Well,
NFC
so right
East.
now the Giants would have to run the table to be 9-7.
Correct.
Right? No, is that right? 9-7.
They've
You
got
said-
6 games left. Yep, that would make them 9-7
Right.
if they run the table.
and the odds of that probably aren't real good.
No, because
And
they all got to play. It's murderer's row for most of the teams because they're playing the NFC West this year. When Seattle, San Francisco. Who am I leaving out? And the rest of the schedule, they all got to play.
Oh, or you said San Francisco, L.A.,
Yes.
and then St. Louis, or what do you call it?
Cardinals. So, yeah, this is.
Well, I mean, the reason I said that is so more than likely you're looking at a team here. I mean, the Cowboys had a bye this week, so you don't know, what their latest condition is. But I would think that at best the winner, the division winner here is going to be 8-8 or something like that, right around 500. I think there's a more likely chance that they're going to be like a 7-9 team, and I think there is an outside chance that it could be a 6-win team that wins the division.
Yeah.
6 wins. Because basically you're talking about the way these things are, is splitting, going 3-3 the back half of the season would give somebody a 6-10 record or whatever.
Well, John, to that point, here are the Eagles' next games. All right, so they just lost to the Giants. Now they go at Cleveland.
Cleveland thinks they're
Cleveland's, I believe, 6-3 or 7-3.
Right.
Yep.
Then they play Seattle, at Green Bay, New Orleans, Arizona.
They could have won their last game last week.
And they close the season with at Dallas and then the Washington game. That Washington game could be for something.
Could be. Well, I don't see the Eagles being a part of this anymore. Although that tie kind of works to their advantage.
No question.
I just when we did the game, with the Giant game 2 weeks ago, basically now or whatever it was, my gut feeling was, and I think I said at the time, whichever team won that game was going to start going on one direction, the other team would go the other direction. Now that may not be true, but you just got kind of how things are so weird that they're predictably unpredictable. You had never seen this coming the way the Giants stumbled around the first half of the season, but they lost some games that were very winnable. And now all of a sudden,
Very close.
The worm's starting to turn and it's starting to come back their way. So
You're seeing they're getting confidence.
Well,
Yeah.
I tell you one thing: the defense, their front four got to really play better because
You're talking about who for
Washington.
now?
Yeah, they
for
get
Washington,
Yeah, for Washington. Yeah,
Dex, I
they
mean,
come and go.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, we've talked about it. How can you get off to such a slow start? And it was the repeat of we come in every week and go. Offense also had the ball 4 drives inside the Lions.
They had
30,
80-some plays.
over 80. And in the first half alone, 200 yards, 4 drives inside the Lions' 30.
3 points.
3 points.
yeah.
Pretty stunning.
And playing from behind against this defense again, it's just bizarre. What do you guys think? I mean, preparation, fast start, slow starts, but it's not week 3 or 4 now. It's 10.
I don't
Week
know.
10.
The interesting thing is, after watching yesterday's game, I kind of came away impressed with some of the playmakers they have on offense.
Right.
They seem like they found some guys, or that they've had them all along. Their little running back by committee, that seems to be working pretty good. Those guys they don't go down after the first contact. They'll get a couple, 3 extra yards, maybe 5 or 6. They're slippery backs, all of them. Wide receivers, all of a sudden, Steve Sims is back in the lineup. This Cam Sims is starting to play well. Of course, you got McLaurin, who's been held, who is a bona fide star on his own.
Yep.
The tight end, what's his name? I keep forgetting his
Logan
name.
Thomas.
Logan Thomas. He's playing well. So, you're getting some contribution. And, you got to give the offensive line credit yesterday, because in the second half, they did a decent job of keeping the pressure off of Smith enough where he could, find a guy and make a play. But then you flip it around and you take it for what it's worth, because they weren't playing one of the better teams in the NFL. They were playing the Detroit Lions. But you scratch your head, and I mean, if you're Patricia or whatever his name is, the coach, you got to be going, what the hell happened to you guys in the second half? And I'm wondering, and bad teams do this, I think, and that falls on the head coach to a certain extent. is they fritter away leads like they had. They were complete command of the game, and all of a sudden their offense can't get a drive going, their defense can't stop anybody.
Detroit has done that.
It's almost like the big, okay, we got this game in the bag.
That game, with the only exception being that they actually pulled it out at the end, they've had like 4 or 5 games go down to the buzzer, like where they have actually choked away leads, and that's who they are, and their defense stinks. Right? So
yeah,
my concern was Burgundy and Gold couldn't put any points on the board even after moving it in the first half. And don't you find yourselves in a lot of the second half of these games, because it's 17-3, I think it got to 24-3.
Yeah.
These teams are kind of, they're okay. I mean, you guys as players, human nature, kind of like, yeah, we got this one sewed away. And
I agree, and even as a viewer, I thought the same thing to a certain extent. But keep this in mind, and we talked about this earlier this year. This is more the norm that's happening nowadays, that when a team gets down by 3 touchdowns, that doesn't mean anything.
No.
I mean, 30 years ago, at least back when we played that, you was down by 3 touchdowns.
Right.
I'm telling you, you can count on one hand the number of teams coming back. That didn't happen very often at all. Nowadays, it's commonplace to get down by a good margin, even in the second half, and come back and win the football game. I mean, this was reminiscent of and I think that was only 17. They were down 21, but what, against Philadelphia in the opening game, they were down 17 going into the second half, and they was able to come back. So I think that no matter, I mean, coaches, that they got to say, look, in this day and age, excuse me, in this day and age,
do you have COVID?
Not as far as I know, but I can put the mask on. In this day and age,
Dexter's got the antibodies. He said he'd give you a kiss. You're good.
Oh yeah, we can do like that movie, The Green Mile, where that guy lets all that stuff out of his mouth. Yeah, blow into me, Dex. Ooh, I feel much better now. What was his name? Anyway, he looked like he could rush the passer.
Yeah, that was a big man.
But I just think that that this team, like I said, you can come back from anywhere nowadays, and it kind of wraps us back around to, going forward. I think the die has been cast here that Alex Smith is the starter for the rest of the year, and I think we can just put the rear view, unless something happens to him where he's injured. Haskins isn't going to get a chance to play.
Do you think it's just a point in the season that they realize that Alex does give them the best chance to win, and that's good enough for the rest of the locker room and the players, based on Dwayne Haskins' performance, head case, whatever it is?
Yep.
What do you think, Dex?
Well, I tell you what, when I see Alex Smith out there, it's just one lick away.
Right.
Yeah, one lick away.
And that still is true. And I agree with you, John. I was surprised that he moved as well as he did for the second game, but this is the big time, and I think he's one lick.
I do believe that they think that that Smith gives them the best chance to win, and I now believe that. I wasn't so sure, but I think yesterday Alex Smith proved to me that he's still capable. Now, is he going to hold up? We don't know. He certainly thinks he can. The coaches think he can, so God bless him. Go ahead, let it rip. And the reason I'm saying this now is because of what I read is that Haskins still doesn't get it. I mean, now at this point, he is basically, it's time to call in St. Jude. He is a lost cause.
Yeah.
And you just got to take that. If they were really smart about this, I would guess, and I don't know, maybe this isn't really smart, but I mean, why not the guy you got on the practice squad? Bring him up. You were carrying 3 quarterbacks before. Move him past Haskins. Put him as number 2. I mean, I don't know how much worse. Where do you go with this? Because if something happens to Smith, then Haskins is going to go in. Right. Now what do you... There's no way. To me, it's like goofy, because no matter, the best laid plans of mice and men. If you go all the way back, Alex Smith wouldn't be playing right now. And all of a sudden, you got a reporter from some paper here in town saying that he might be the future. Well, if he was the future, why didn't he play as soon as they realized Haskins wasn't the future? Why didn't he go in? Well, because they didn't know, and it was an accident, and we just kind of stumbled our way into it.
We both saw the headline and said, we have to click this on and read this, because I can't believe what my eyes are seeing and trying to translate. If he is your future, then you are in a heap of trouble, with all due respect.
We're talking about 2 years
There's
out.
31 other teams aren't sitting there, let's build our next couple of years around a 36, about to be a 37-year-old quarterback who's coming off a really bad leg injury.
And that's why they don't go deep, because I think they want to sort of protect this guy, his physical attributes. That's why they do short passes.
Well,
that's part of it, for sure.
and I mean that's what you see all the dink and dunk
Screens,
because him getting rid of it.
Getting the ball out of his hand.
And
yeah, there's nothing wrong. I mean, hey, listen, you got to, like anything else, Dexter, you got to tailor your system around the talent that you have, and they know that right now probably that Alex Smith needs to, for several reasons. One, you don't want to get him pinned in back there, potentially injured, but the other part of it is it gives the chance really for the offense to get the playmakers to make some plays instead of going down deep. I mean, you'd like to see it because I think that they have some. I think they got the guys on the field that can do that. I think they got some guys that can stretch the field. But I just, like I said earlier, that when you look at this whole deal, at best, it's just kind of it's been how things have evolved. It hasn't been by design. That's clear.
Nah.
Right.
I mean, everything fell out. I mean, the whole thing, and who knows the story there. Clearly, they knew before they ever anointed number 7 that they had problems with him. I mean, it doesn't, unless you're going to tell me that, well, no, that wouldn't make sense. Because they told him early on, it was like a week or 2 weeks into training camp.
You're the guy.
He was now the starter.
You're the guy.
Right.
So was that when he took his foot off the pedal? I mean, so they knew going in, so they let him play long enough so he could shoot himself in the foot.
There you go.
And then take him out and then replace.
The problem now to the point of demoting him anymore, or then he absolutely won't. You won't even get a block of cheese for him and trying to move
I don't see how you're going to get more than that.
in the future, because if he's the 15th overall a year ago, and I think we've lost Dexter. And that's all you need to know. That this guy's a head case and a coach killer, and you don't, So I think they're trying to salvage a really bad situation. And but I don't think we've seen the last of Mr. Haskins.
I think they need a quarterback whisperer now.
Where you get the block of cheese from?
Depends on what kind of cheese it is.
Yeah,
I'm just thinking to myself, what's the guy named Urban Meyer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if he told Dwayne that you're going to enter the draft this year. Was he the quarterback when?
Yes.
I mean, was he the coach when he left?
Yeah.
Yes.
And
So he probably said, Dwayne, ain't got a spot for you here next year. Just go ahead and enter the draft.
And they had
then
those,
says all these glowing things about him.
Of course.
When asked in public.
Well, they had,
I mean, this just didn't start when he showed up.
747s lined up with quarterbacks coming out of there. His kid Justin Fields is unbelievable.
Well,
Yes.
but yeah, and my point is, did he just learn this behavior when he got to the NFL? If anything, you'd think you'd go back a notch, wouldn't you? You'd be kind of like, whoa, this is the NFL. I was in the Big Ten, and that was not, but this is the NFL. Does he go, oh, this is the NFL? I just got done with the Big Ten. Now that's some serious football.
Well, right,
I mean,
right.
how do you go with that? I don't, like I said, I'm wondering basically if, in fact, that his work habits were the same in college. They had to be. And if they were, I don't see that really is impressing his former coach.
Well, as Urban
no matter
said,
what he might say.
Urban switched his position a couple of times. Early on, it was Dwayne's got to have more talent around him. That's how you're going to get the best out of him. Because
that's such a
U.
lame thing to say.
Then he comes back,
ones,
of course, and that's Urban Meyer. And then he comes out a month later saying, yeah, he really hasn't played that many games, and he's going to have to prepare more and start doing all of this. So typical coach speak of Urban protecting Urban.
Mm-hmm. Okay, listen, this is what I was told. Who's the third string quarterback?
we don't know.
With the Washington football team?
Yeah.
A guy named Steven Montez, maybe?
Oh, that sounds about right.
I think Logan Thomas, too.
Well, he is.
Yeah,
he is, because he was quarterback at Tech. And so 2 weeks ago,
well,
he
that's
was
to finish a game if there's nobody left on the bench.
he was
like
gonna,
Russ Grimm was the quarterback.
Oh, that would have been cool.
I was insulted. Still am.
In high school?
Yeah, he was a high school
he was a quarterback. Right.
When he moves the offensive line, at least I stayed in the backfield. Come on. Hey, what? Hey, wait a second. I got to say this, though. Russ's mind was right. Mine was not right. So they did the right thing.
So Joey's, I'm going to punt. I'm going to play wide out. You're the opposite. You're like, guys, hand me the ball.
The only time I ever volunteered for anything in the NFL was when I went to Coach Bugle to begin with and said, give me the ball before the playoffs started. And he said, don't talk to me. Go in and tell the old man, referencing Gibbs. And I went in and told him, and Joe just looked at me and went, Okay, well, that's good to know. And I walked out there going, what did I do that for?
I got a
But it
question.
did turn out all right. So, but that's the only time I step forward. Generally, I take a step back.
I got a question, Joe. Who would you rather run behind, Joe Jacoby or Russ Graham?
Oh, that's a tough one because they both played different positions.
Right.
You know, Russ, although Joe played guard as well. That's a toss-up, really. You know, they were both, and they played side by side. You know, they were just. There's no way to pick a winner there.
Okay.
You know, every once in a while, one of them make a mistake, but that wasn't very often. More
Dexter,
often than not.
did you ever volunteer for something on the field and say, "Hey, I got this"?
No.
Right, exactly. But when your rookie year though, you was a
Wide out.
Gunner?
I mean,
A gunner.
A gunner.
yeah. And then did you volunteered for that, didn't you?
Well, I
Or
went
no?
to Wayne Sevier and told him I wanted to be on special teams. He put me at the gunner.
Well, you were going to be on special teams.
I know.
But Dexter's like,
if
yeah,
you
but
wasn't starting.
I'm going to volunteer for something you think you're going to assign me to.
Yes, exactly. That's like the old "you're fired, you can't fire me, I quit."
yeah.
I think you're going to be a special. No, I've already volunteered.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to keep an eye on what happens this week. We got the Cincinnati Bengals, another poopy football team.
They
So
just got dusted off by Pittsburgh yesterday.
they sure did.
They didn't play well at all, did they?
No,
I mean, I watched a little bit earlier.
they're in disarray. They've got all kinds of problems there.
The Bengals.
Yeah.
Now this is where you reach the as low as you can go if you lose this game.
This is pretty bad. This is
And
What
so
is
if
their
you
record?
lose this game, which really isn't, and it's a game here,
it is here.
well, that will help a little bit. Nobody has to travel. But I would guess that you're just going to keep a stiff upper lip and march through the rest of the season with number 11 behind the quarterback or behind the center. And right now, I got to say, based on the little information that I get, and I don't know how much the veracity of any of it, but I do believe number 7 mind is still not right. And if that's the case, it's obvious that Alex Smith has to be your quarterback. And you got to wonder though if you're Alex Smith. And, you're starting to get out there and you're wading in the thick of things, as the season goes on, because there's still, 6 games left to play?
Yeah.
That, be careful what you ask for. All right, we about ready to wrap this up?
Yeah.
Or if that's the case, we go out.